Hello folks, I wanted to make a quick video with some reminders of how to set up our gradebook. We're going to talk about how to set up the gradebook at the beginning of the year and then at semester depending on when you're setting up your gradebook. How to set up the exams properly, and then also how to set up exam waivers at the end of the year for seniors. So we're going to start off going to your gradebook. This is what you would do in the fall. I'm doing this in the spring, so all of my stuff is going to say Class B or S2. I'm going to have a bunch of grades in here already. So yours might be blank. That's okay. Go down to settings. Go to traditional grade calculations. Unfortunately, there isn't a way to set up everybody's grade book to be the same. So there's a couple of things that you have to do to make sure that your grades calculate correctly. So the first one is making sure that you have term weighting for your semester grade. Your grade book is broken into three categories: semester, marking period, and exam. Semester is just a combination of marking period and exam. So semester has to be marked as term weighting. You don't have an option for that. If it says total points or anything else, go to this little pencil, and you need to have two terms. They should both say term weighting here, not total points or category, term weighting. And you would have M means marking period. So it'd say either M1 or M2, and it would E means exam. That'd be either E1 or E2, depending on when you are doing this. Your M1 should be set up to be 80%. Your exam should be set up to be 20%. Then there should be no other categories besides that. Then you would hit save. Now I'm not going to hit save because I don't want to change my grade book. It's the spring and all my grades are in there. I don't want to mess mine up. But you would then hit save. Then from here you have a decision to make. So for marking period, you have to decide if you're going to be a category weights person or if you're going to be a total points person. I prefer category weights, so I have my setting at category weighting. I have three categories. My partner quizzes are 15%, homework is 5%, tests are 60%. This adds up to 80%. That's the 80 points that are going to go into your term weighting. They don't have to add up to 80%. They can add up to 100%, but I usually add it up to 80 so that I can have in my head the whole semester, the sort of the view of the whole semester. These percentages over here are what the grades would calculate, or what the categories would calculate out to before you take the final exam. So until they take their final exam, for my class, tests are worth actually 75%. But anyway, I always have these categories add up to 80. If you're a total points person, you could just have one category of total points, or one setting of total points. You could have the one attribute, maybe just call it classwork or something like that. And if it's total points, you're done. You don't have to mess around with that. Again, you would hit save here. I'm not going to because I don't want to change my grade book. For the exam, I like to change mine to category weights. Most people should probably just leave this as total points. I like to have the final exam color be blue in my grade book. That's just a personal preference. So I would recommend leaving the final exam as just total points. But if you understand how category weights work, maybe you want to have yours listed as a category as well. It doesn't matter what you call your exam. You don't have to have final exam listed anywhere when you calculate your final exam, and I'm going to talk about in that next step. So you would hit save. I'm going to hit exit because I don't want to save and change mine. Now, once you get one class set up, you should copy that class to all the other classes that have that same grading scale. So if you have classes that have different scales, you need to go in.
No course to student services, please. No course to student services. Thank you.
Sorry for that. What was I saying? If you have different classes that have different scales, you need to go in and do that setup that I just did for those different scales each time. Now, after you get your setup, like for instance, my setup for pre-calculus is the same that it's going to be for all of my classes. If you hit this gear here, you could then copy. I could pick the semester that I'm in right now, or I could pick something from last year. If you want to just copy a class from last year, you can skip that whole first step and just do what you did last year. But anyway, you would pick a class that you want to copy from. I'm going to pick first hour. Then I could click that I want to copy that into semester 1. I could click all my classes because all my classes have the same grading scale. And then I would hit validate. I'm not going to do that now. You would hit validate, I should say. I'm not going to do that because I don't want to change my grading scale. Now, I'd also recommend just do this in the fall and be done with it for the year. Go in and do that again for second semester. So you're going to pick the class that you want to copy from. could be any class. Like for instance, I'm going to pick last year's pre-calculus class and then copy it to both semesters of this year's class. You'd go in, you'd select all your classes that you could copy to, hit validate. Once you do that, your gradebook is now set up. I'm going to discard my changes. You should not discard your changes. So now my gradebook is set up. It's going to calculate the marking period and exam correctly. Now let's talk about the exam itself. If you look over here in this little tab, this little drop down, this shows you the dates. So this gradebook is sort of weird in the way that it's not quite intuitive how it works. The semester goes from 1/21 to 6/9. So anything that's in that date range will count towards the semester. But then the marking period and the exam, which we remember set that up as term weightings, they fit in these dates. So the point is anything that you put from 1/21 to 6/7 will count as a marking period assignment. Even if you call it final exam, even if you make a category called final exam and you put it in there and you mark it as a final exam, if it's dated between these two dates, it will count towards the marking period, not the final exam. And then the other side of that, the flip side, the exam is 6/8 or 6/9. So anything you put in there on 6/8 or 6/9, like if you have a participation grade and you date it on those two dates, that grade will count towards your exam. So what I like to do to double check that I've put my grades in correctly or the dates incorrectly, is I usually have this tab on S2 so that I can see everything. I change it to M2 and everything should be gone. Sorry, everything should still be there except for the final exam. So you'll notice that when I was in M2, that exam thing disappeared. When I go to exam, the only thing that I have listed underneath the E2 tab is the final exam. So it's important, even if your seniors are taking the exam in May, you should still date the final exam between 6/8 and 6/9. Now, if this is first semester, you'd need to date it between January 20th or 19th or whatever the window is for the exams. So make sure that your exams are set up correctly, you've got them dated the right date, and that your marking period is the stuff that you want to count towards the marking period is not dated in those two dates of 6/8 and 6/9. Okay, now the last thing I want to talk about is how to input the exam waiver for seniors. So what you would do, you have to do this from a specific spot in the gradebook. So I'm going to go into my assignment list. Sorry. I'm going to go into my score sheet, and I'm going to make sure that I'm in the E2 dropdown. So E2 dropdown here. It should look like this. You should have the students' names. You should have the grade option, and then you should have a final exam column. Whatever you put in here is going to calculate their grade, but nothing that the things that Lauren would see, she's going to see whatever's in this column. So whatever you put here, like I was putting some like exempt for an exam waiver kid, that doesn't help because there's still nothing, even when I hit save, there's nothing in the grade column. So what we do to input an exam waiver, it doesn't matter, I'm going to take that off. You don't need to have anything there. I'm going to go back, I'm going to go and click on the grade column for a student. I'm going to hit codes, and then I'm going to hit exam waiver. Now it shows up as purple and exempt. I don't know why it has that setting. If you don't like it, you could turn it off or you could just leave it. So let me show you that again. I'd go to grade, click on the grade, then go over here to codes, down to exam waiver, and then hit save. And now that will show up in the grade book for Lauren that she can check to make sure that you inputted your grades, that there is you gave that student the exam waiver. Over here, I usually do put the exempts in there just as a placeholder so I know who my seniors are and which ones I have to put in grades. It doesn't really matter if you put those over there. What matters is what you do here. Now, for another student, if they get a grade, they actually take the final, I can still input that grade and it'll give them that grade on the final.